Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, where we discuss the popular culture of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I just realized Sesame Street is about to turn 48 this year. That's pretty amazing and quite a milestone. I remember watching Sesame Street as a kid, and it really helped me to learn more about Canadian culture. Let's take a look at Sesame Street. I really have a lot of fond memories about Sesame Street. When I was a kid growing up here in Ontario, it really was an amazing thing for children's programming to be able to be as engaging and as fun as Sesame Street. I remember all the really cool characters, the Muppets, the human characters, and all the education that was to be had. But it really didn't feel like education. It just felt like watching a whole bunch of different characters and just their daily lives, going up and down Sesame Street, learning about their neighbors, really meeting interesting folks. And what really got to me was that everyone was of different nationality. And for an immigrant like myself, who came from the Philippines, this was very similar to my own neighborhood growing up here in Ontario. I didn't live in the big city downtown Toronto. I ended up living in a small suburb, probably somewhere in the greater Scarborough region. And it was really interesting because it really was more of an ethnic-based community. And watching Sesame Street, I really did feel as if this was a very normal thing all over the world. This also helped me to relate well to the Sesame Street characters, and the fact that some of the children needed to learn English or sign language or any other number of skills that the Sesame Street characters would really associate well with them. I really gravitated towards many of the characters that were in Sesame Street, particularly the characters of Luis and Maria, two, I suppose, characters who represented Native Americans and Mexicans. They were also people who sort of looked like me, a Filipino with very Asian-like features. So I was easily able to relate to these two particular characters. But then again, the entire host of characters in Sesame Street were all very memorable, including Bob Johnson, Gordon, Susan Robinson, and Linda the librarian, who didn't really speak much, but taught sign language to all the children.
Wind! Wind!
But Sesame Street also had some amazing little episodes. Things like cartoons, which would actually teach you how to count, how to draw, how to do any number of things. And of course, counting was a very big thing for children's programming. I think everybody can remember the old counting song. Speaking of songs, I couldn't tell the time at this point when I was a kid, but I always knew it was around 6 o'clock whenever I heard the Sesame Street jingle. Every day, they would try to teach us all about different morals and values. And this to me was very important. Talking about how people should respect their neighbors, how children should also learn how to cross the street, basic life lessons that young children should learn while living here in North America. What's Sesame Street without its most popular characters? The Muppets. The Muppets were really quite the cast of characters. And at this stage, which I believe was somewhere around season 10 for Sesame Street, I was introduced to some of the most classic of Muppet characters, including Big Bird, Bert and Ernie, Kermit the Frog, Lefty the salesman, Cookie Monster, Grover, Don Music, Mr. Snuffleupagus, Count Von Count, The Amazing Mumford, Henry Monster, Prairie Dawn, Biff, the construction worker, and his buddy, Sully, Gladys the Cow, Barkley, Telly Monster, the Two-Headed Monster, Sinister Sam. Then there was Bruno, the chief companion of Oscar the Grouch. The Muppets have always been a popular part of the Sesame Street family. Sesame Street is a wonderful example of early children's programming, and its influence has gone on to inspire many different programs throughout the ages. Sesame Street has continued its mission to educate children and to bring as much fun and excitement as humanly possible. It's done so well, in fact, that it's won over 118 Emmy Awards in its nearly 50th year history. Sesame Street has always been a great example of being able to get engagement from children and participation in schools. It also helped a lot of parents to be able to associate with their kids. And in that, it's achieved a lot more than it really set out to. One of the things which I recognize now as an adult is that Sesame Street would not shy away from a lot of the bigger problems that children faced in their lives. The idea of multiculturalism, the concept of having two separated parents, the idea that people should love each other no matter what. In recent years, there have been attempts at politicizing certain aspects of Sesame Street. Thankfully, the creators have recognized that this is not something that they should be politicizing, and their responses to questions like, why do Bert and Ernie live together? Thankfully, this hasn't really changed Sesame Street at all, which is pretty incredible in nearly 48 years. Sesame Street was created by Joan Ganz Cooney and Lloyd Morrisett, with help from Jim Henson, and produced by the Children's Television Workshop. And up until 2000, this was always the case. Then they became Sesame Workshop, and has been continuing the production to this day. I really enjoyed Sesame Street and have many, many fond memories. Over the years, Sesame Street has had multiple celebrity guest stars, more than you can count. And it's kind of interesting some of the choices that they've had for guests on Sesame Street.
You said you wanted to play dress up, well, don't you? Come on, Elmo, don't you want to play? Elmo!
I remember Sesame Street very fondly, and it remains to this day a TV show which still engages children and helps them to learn just as well as it did nearly 48 years ago. Well guys, that'll about do it for my look back at Sesame Street. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a like. It really helps me out. And also, please consider sharing this with someone you think would enjoy it. If you have any comments or questions, or suggestions on cartoons, animation, or anything else you'd like me to review, please leave that in the comment section below. Well guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. Check out some of the other episodes I've done. You can also follow me on Facebook and Twitter.